We're going to read 3 verses at the start of Colossians chapter 3. It's verses 5 to 7. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth: fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. For which things' sake the wrath of God cometh on the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them. When I see or hear the word mortify, and that isn't very often nowadays, it reminds me of my sister. Whenever she was recounting some particularly embarrassing incident that she'd either witnessed or been party to, she would say that she had been mortified. I'm not sure how common the expression is in that context, but she would certainly use it. Mortified. In other words, embarrassed or deeply humiliated. That's one of the meanings given in the Oxford Dictionary. Whenever you read the word in the King James Version of the Bible, however, the meaning is quite different. The word mortuary is used of a place where you put dead bodies. The word mortify is used to make a dead body. It means to put to death. I'll come back to that just in a minute. Paul has already mentioned about the problem of those who were not holding the head, chapter 2, verse 19. And he's already urged these believers not to lose their connection with their head. In verse 2 of chapter 3, he reminds us that our minds are to be fixed on things above, where our head is in heaven. However, the reality is that our bodies are still upon earth. That's what Paul says in verse 5, your members which are upon the earth. While we are upon the earth, the sad fact is that we might use our members for wrong purposes. And Paul gives a list of sins in this chapter, all too common in our modern world. And these incur the wrath of God, verse 6. So there is a danger of a practical disconnect between our head and our bodies. So what is to be done? Paul writes, mortify your members. Now, putting to death, or capital punishment as we call it, has a very bad press in our modern world. Countries that still practice it are thought of as uncivilized and barbaric. Our pain-free culture is much more genteel, and we attempt to sort things out by re-education and therapy. Mind you, I'm not sure about the results of that. However, this ongoing pandemic has taught us the dangers of such a softly approach. It's clear to most of us that putting the virus to death is what we need, because if we don't kill it, it will kill us. That's what Paul is telling us to do in these verses. Evil practices must be stamped out, and to do that, nothing less than mortify your members will do. Parleying with sin, trying to manage sin, reducing it, will not do. Drastic yet effective action must be taken. Prior to their conversion, Paul reminds these Christians that sin was something in the which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them, verse 7. There's a way of living that characterizes unbelievers. The psalmist describes them in Psalm 17 as men of the world which have their portion in this life. But we have a different life, hidden with Christ in God, verse 3. And it should be lived out on earth in fellowship with heaven. Indeed, to use the other meaning of mortify, we should be embarrassed at anything less than that. In our next video, we'll explore how Paul illustrates that changed way of life.